Welcome everyone. I'm Red Jackson and this is my first ever live stream for my channel. So as you know, we usually do interviews. I interview the guest, I edit it and it's uploaded. But today is a bit different because this interview is recorded live. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask Craig, you can send it as a super chat and we will answer it during the stream. So let's get started. We've been waiting long enough. Let's add Craig.
Hey, what's up,
Hello.
Ed? How you doing?
I'm great. So pleased to be here. Great to be here with you, man. We've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm glad we're doing it. Um, so as you know, we have a bunch of questions that I've written, and we have a few that some viewers have put in as well.
Okay.
But before we get to them, I'd like to know a bit more about you. So can you just introduce yourself? Tell everyone who you are and how you knew Michael Jackson.
My name is Craig Parks. Excuse me. Worked for Michael Jackson. I believe it was the year. It's been almost 35 years. God, time flies.
Wow.
Red, I don't even think you're. How old are you? You're not.
I'm 15. I'm 15, so I don't remember any of the Michael Jackson stuff.
So I worked with Michael Jackson before you even thought of. You weren't even a twinkle in your
Mhm.
dad's eye. So my career started as a MJ impersonator, like a lot of people. And so I did that for a spell, and then I got. Do you want me to go into that, or you want to? How do you
Yeah,
want?
just go into it. Give us a bit of an overview.
Okay, well, I used to do gigs as an impersonator. I started out doing the impersonation thing out of high school. So I was class of '85, long time ago, guys. And so what happened? I did a Michael Jackson impersonation. A Michael Jackson contest, lookalike contest, and I won. Back then, there were several different agents. There's a guy named Ron Smith that had this lookalike thing going on. And so he would find lookalikes that did different things and take them to events, corporate parties, birthday parties, etc.
Right.
So I happened to win. I won some money and I did a gig or two, and then I figured out it was a business. So I started doing shows around. Um, One day, my manager and I, in Southern California, there's a mall called Sherman Oaks Galleria, and I had just did a gig.
Okay.
And I was leaving the party, and I was walking through the mall, and I was getting all these people running up to me because I was dressed in Michael Jackson garb, and I had the makeup and the hair and whatever. So people were coming over taking pictures, and even though I'm just to look like they wanted autographs, so I do that. And so a gentleman walked up to me, and I do not remember his name, and I feel really bad that I do not recall his name. However, he walked up to me and says, "Hey, one of my friends worked for Michael Jackson." And I said, "Oh, really? What did he do?" I don't know if you're familiar with a film called Captain EO that was at the.
Yes, we love Captain EO. Absolutely.
Okay. So the gentleman's name that he was speaking of, his name was Gary Dupree. Gary Dupree played the character of, I think his name was Major Domo, the guy in the
Okay.
tin suit with the one leg. Do you remember the character? Okay.
I know.
So he says, my friend Gary Dupree worked with him. I said, "Oh, wow, I'd like to talk to him, just to find out, sort of like what you're doing, Red, and asking questions. I can talk to him." He says, I said, "My dream and my wish is to one day work for Michael Jackson." And he said, "Well, what would you do if you worked for Michael Jackson?" So I said, "Well, I could be a stand-in photo double, or I could be a decoy. I just like to be around him." So he says, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna have Gary. I'm gonna see if it's okay to give Gary your phone number, and you guys maybe can talk." So he called Gary. Gary said it was okay. So I ended up talking to him. Now, mind you, all this is before cell phones.
Yeah. Long time ago.
I called Gary, and Gary spoke to me on the phone, and we were conversing back and forth. And he said, "So what exactly do you do?" I said, "I'm an impersonator." I said, "I would love to work for Michael Jackson, or at least meet him." He says, "Well, work for him. What would you do?" I said, "Well, I could be his photo double stand-in, or Decoy. He said, tell you what, why don't you mail me your pictures and any stuff that you have. So of course I was on my game. I had my pictures. I mailed it out to Gary. Gary calls me, but it was snail mail, so it was no email back then. So he called me and says, hey, listen, there's an opening coming up as a stand-in in a photo double. Would you be interested? I said, yes, absolutely. So he said, here's a phone number. Call this number and they'll let you know when it's time for you to come down to do the interview. So I said, okay. So I called every week religiously. So weeks went by, month went by. One time I called and they said, the job's already been filled.
You're kidding.
I was heartbroken.
Mm.
I mean, I was really heartbroken because I really, 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 really freaking wanted this job.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And I hung up the phone. I gathered myself and I called Gary and I said, Gary, I just want to tell you thank you for even putting my name in the hat. I'd like to take you to dinner or do something nice for you for just putting my name in the hat. Gary was like, okay, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, they said the position's filled and, you know, I'm just being gracious and I appreciate the opportunity of even being thought of to do it. He says, okay. So we hung up the phone. My manager had procured another job to go overseas again. I was going to go to Japan. And I was just about to sign the contract. And the night before I was supposed to sign the contract to go and prepare, you know, get everything to go for 6 months, I got a phone call at like 3 o'clock in the morning from Gary. Gary says, Craig. I said, yes. I said, what's up? Who's this? This is Gary Dupree. I said, what's going on? He says, get your ass up. Excuse my French. I'm sorry. Get up.
Let's go.
Find a pen because I had to write all this information down. So I needed to go to 2 different places. One for screening, security screening, then to another place to fill out some paperwork, and then the third place was undisclosed until after I did those first few steps. So I got up immediately, took a shower, got dressed, and got made up, and put my hair together, and ran to the car and went to this place, went to that place, and then the third place was a place called Culver Studios Studio, which is now called Sony Studios.
Yeah,
and that is where films. That was where Smooth Criminal, most of Smooth Criminal film. So I arrived and they put me in this white suit, the iconic white suit with the blue armband and the fedora, white fedora. And they told me, walk me onto the set and told me to stand, to lay down stand in a certain spot. So I stood in a certain spot. I said lay because the cameras were pointed up. And so I hear on the walkie-talkie, directors walking to the set, everybody in their places. So director, I think that was John Hora is his name, if I recall correctly. Okay. He looks at the camera, he looks at me, he says, yeah, perfect. So he walks off and they say, stay right there, don't move. So then I hear the moon is walking, number one, moon is walking, number one is walking. So then here comes Michael Jackson. My heart is boom.
Oh yeah.
I
can imagine.
So he walks in, he looks through the camera. Yeah, he's perfect. He'll work. So he walks off, and I waved at him. He waved. I don't know why I waved. So I waved. He waved back. He walks off, and they walk over to me. Says, "Be on the set at 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I'll see you on set. Be here on time. Don't be late."
Wow.
And that's how.
Wow. That's so cool. So you went from just being a fan to being like, hey, I'm going to work with Michael Jackson, to working with Michael Jackson.
That's exactly how it happened.
Dude,
and
that's crazy.
So I was told the next day after I came in, to be dressed because they measured me because the suit was a little off. It was not Michael's suit. It was just a duplicate. So I went in for wardrobe and got fitted and it was, they did the whole thing with the fitting and that worked out. And then Gary calls me the next day and was like, Craig, did everything work out? I was like, yeah. He says, you won't believe this. There was like 50 to 60 Michael Jackson impersonators that pulled up to the set, and they were all in this big sound room. I was like, yeah. I said, well, I don't know nothing about it. I worked yesterday, and I got my call time for tomorrow. He says, okay, I'm just checking to see what happened. And the rest is history. That's how it all happened. So
that's insane.
Yeah, it was an incredible day. It was an incredible day. So
I bet.
That's how I became a stand-in photo double for my.
So I want to delve a bit deeper into that later, but first we have some questions from the viewers.
Sure.
So let me just get these up here. Okay. Here we go. Mikna asked, hello, my question is, how would you describe Michael's personality?
Okay. Michael was so cool.
Yeah.
I'll say this. Since I've worked with him, and even before working with him, he was the most down-to-earth person I have ever worked with or been around as far as celebrity is concerned. For him, see, your viewers need to understand something about before what we're doing right now, conversing via internet. There was no internet back then. There was no media except for the media that was released. So I don't think people really understand just how magical he was, in the sense that he can make things happen just from music and video. So when he walked on the set, I don't care if you were the person that was sweeping the floor or the director or whomever, he spoke to everybody and was very personable with everyone that came in contact. So he in a lot of ways was just very humble. I mean, he was self-aware that he was the king of pop, and he never called himself that, by the way, in person.
Right.
People called him that, but he never said it. He was very personal. So yeah, he was a nice person, very good person, and very generous. I saw him give a lot to people as far as energy and just a very good person overall.
Absolutely. I mean, that definitely would have, helped his success, because he wouldn't be the king of pop if he, wasn't such a great guy.
Yeah.
I've spoken with a lot of Michael's close colleagues, and they all say about Michael's generosity and, just how kind he was to people.
Yes, he was very kind. Very kind.
Now, we have another question from Mikna, which is, did you ever see Michael stressed? How did he cope with all the pressure? So, I mean, Michael was the king of pop, and he was the most famous man on earth. So did you ever see that get to him, in a way?
No. In my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm going to stress that point, in my humble opinion, I believe Michael dealt with stress with working even harder. So I'll tell you a quick story before, I don't want to, because I have so many things in my head that as we're talking, they're coming back. Michael worked so many hours, and me being a kid, I was probably, I want to venture to say maybe 19, 20, maybe 21, not really sure. So I'm just a kid. And so it wasn't work for me. Let me just give you that. But we literally would have 15, 16, 17, it means almost a full day of work. So the folks around us were all grown-ups. Everybody around me was grown-ups. there was this I gotta tell you this story, Ray. One day we're working.
Here we go.
And I'm just having a good time. And I'm like, we're probably pushing 20 hours at this point. And one of the guys that does the lighting, he says, oh, just say the magic words. Please just say the magic words. And I'm looking at him, and everybody keeps turning around looking at him. He kept saying, just say the magic words. And finally, I just said, what's the magic words? It's a wrap. He wanted to go home so bad because he was just say the magic words. But Michael didn't. He was like, let's just do it one more time. Famous words. One more time. So I think how he dealt with stress, to answer him or her's question, is he dealt with stress by working even harder. And if he felt like it, if he didn't feel it in his soul, he wasn't going to stop. That's how he did.
Great answer. And we have one more question at the moment, which is how did Michael feel about people impersonating his style and his body doubles? Did he find it strange or did he love it?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, I'll give you. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to speak on someone else or other people because I don't know
Okay.
question. I do know Derek Morgan, but I didn't know his. I don't know how they coexist. I only worked with them together one time, and that was for the Superbowl.
Yes.
However, how he felt and what we talked about, he and I talked about. He says he thought it was great. He said as long as you do it in good taste and represent me. This came out of his mouth. He says represent me out. Don't do something that I wouldn't do because your image is everything. His image is everything, and so much so. And I got his. I would, figuratively say his stamp of approval. He wrote a book. Well, didn't really write it, but someone wrote it for him on his behalf. I think the book was called Moonwalker. I've lost the book.
Yes, that's right.
And he said, "Thank you for being me." So that meant a lot to me to receive that from him, and him signing that and saying that because he felt like I represented him pretty well.
Absolutely. So he was just, as long as you did, good things, he was happy for people to, imitate him.
Yes. You have to remember Michael Jackson openly said that people like James Brown, but James Brown was one of his main influencers. And if you watch some of his footwork, that really is, that's James Brown.
Yeah.
So imitation is the highest form of flattery. And so when he saw it done well, he was very impressed. And as long as imagery was, done proper and you were a likable person, it was my feeling that his thought was, admirable to those who impersonated him. Because actually we were, the impersonators, the good ones anyway, were advertisement for him actually, Can't be, not everyone could afford a Michael Jackson concert ticket. So one paying me or one of these other impersonators $150, $200 an hour to show up with their bar mitzvah was great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, if anyone else wants to send in a question, you can send a super chat of any amount and we will answer it here for you. I have some supporters on Coffee who have some questions. So here's another one. D Reader MJ asks, do you remember the last time you spoke to him?
The last time I spoke to Michael Jackson, I'm kind of getting sad because I'm thinking about it, was what was a good memory? It was the day before the Super Bowl halftime show.
What?
So we were discussing the guy who produced, they were putting the show together. They were worried about security for Michael, Derek, and myself. Derek Morgan, by the way, that's
yeah.
Okay, so they were worried about security, so they had this silly idea of, initially anyway, of just having us come plain clothed and somehow I don't even know how they conceptualized, but it was so ridiculous, it didn't make any sense. So I spoke to Michael and I was like, Michael, I really want this to go the way I know that you envision it. I said, he and I need to be full makeup and we need to match you identical, otherwise the illusion won't work.
Yeah.
And Michael said, well, yeah, whatever you want, we're gonna make it work. Don't worry, Craig. And the next day, of course, for the show, that day, actually, right after I left him, they made an appointment with Karen Faye, which is Michael Jackson's makeup artist. And of course, Michael Bush took care of us as far as the costume. So he was. I think Michael was already. He just reiterated what I was saying anyway.
Yeah.
Sounded very so. He was just being, I think, polite with the director or whatever, but he already had it in his mind. It's got to be right, you know.
Right. So Michael, would you say he was really determined? Like when he had a vision, that was the thing that he wanted to happen for sure.
Oh
You
yeah,
know.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, I still reluctant to say some things, but I'll say this: I did an illusion for him for a concert. Uh, I was the werewolf in one of the concerts, and
Yeah.
they did this thing where come out a toaster and I pop up, and every night when we switch places, he would tell me, "Jump higher." So here I am. I don't know if you remember the video Thriller where he wore the mask. Well, I had the
Yeah.
actual
The
mask on,
wolf. Mm-hmm.
werewolf mask, and he wanted me to jump higher, and I was a little scared to do it because I had this
Mm-hmm.
mask on, and I would do it, but every night, can you jump higher, higher, higher? And then he was a perfectionist. One of
Mm-hmm.
the shoes that I wore, I guess, were a pair of his shoes, but they weren't. They were shined too much, and I guess
Right.
one of the fans noticed that the shoes weren't the same. So he's getting ready to get on stage to do the show. He walked all the way back to my dressing room
Oh.
the wardrobe person. The shoes are too
Mm.
shiny. They need to match my shoes. And then everyone just froze.
Mm.
So when he wanted something done, yeah, he was not playing. Not playing
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Mm-hmm. So was that for the bad tour?
Sorry?
Was that for the bad tour?
For the bad tour, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you came out for the Thriller illusion as the werewolf. What was that like for you? Performing in front of thousands and thousands of people pretending to be Michael Jackson.
So listen, I think as an if there's any entertainers watching this right now, you'll know what I'm talking about. I myself have never done drugs in my life, never, not even marijuana. However, my thought process as far as performing and having that many people at one time and watching every move that you do and it's being reacted to is there's so much I can attribute it to a shot of adrenaline when something exciting is about to happen and your whole body is charged. That's how
Yeah.
that's what it was like. And um, I had trouble sleeping because I was just you can see the people, the surge of the people, pushing and watching what you're doing. So yeah, it was electrifying. I mean, I myself as an impersonator have had crowds of maybe a couple thousand, maybe three. And that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. But when you're in front of 15, 20,000 people and they're all in
Mm.
unison screaming, bro, it's just
Oh yeah.
amazing.
I bet. And to have them all think, you are Michael Jackson, did that put pressure on you to, be like Michael and keep it, convincing?
God, you just brought up another thing I just remembered. So we were doing, I'm going to digress just a little bit just to give you.
Yeah, sure.
Prior to working for Michael Jackson, I used to get nervous. I used to get really, really nervous going on stage.
Mm.
Really wanted to do well. Did I hit the moves right? Did I get the timing? Am I holding the mic right? Did I kick with the right leg? Did I moonwalk smooth enough?
Yeah.
And I used to practice a lot. And I remember staying with Michael. We were doing Speed Demon, and we took turns running for the cameras. He would do it, then I would do it. He would do it, then I would do it. So we were standing there waiting for the director to say action. And I said, Michael, do you ever get nervous? He said, no. And I said, he said, do you get nervous? I said, yeah, you never get nervous? He says, Craig, do you practice? Do you rehearse? I said, yeah, I practice all the time. I copied you. He said, what do you mean? I heard you practice every Sunday for 2 hours. That's what I do every Sunday. He says, well, if you rehearse and you know what you're going to do, why are you nervous? And that resonated with me so deep in my soul. I never, ever in my life get nervous anymore on stage. I'm talking about because I've done public speaking, I've done, other stuff, and I don't get nervous because I've already rehearsed. It's already been done before it's done, so I don't get nervous. And that stuck with me. And it's amazing the power of those words that he spoke stuck with me so much that it worked for the rest of my life. So I hope I answered the question.
Wow.
Yeah, no pressure.
That's great. Wow. So we've had some more questions from the viewers. Here's one. Do you own any MJ related memorabilia or items?
I regrettably do not. And that's because I moved around a lot. And like being a entertainer, you move a lot. And now I'm stable. I'm a full grown adult. I'm a grown man, so I'm pretty stable now. So I've had posters. I had the Bad Tour jacket, which was stolen from me. I had that, and I've had the book I spoke about. Someone got that. I had posters. I had the original first bad poster that was released. I got it before it was released. Michael flipped out about that.
Oh.
Quick story on that. You just keep bringing up things I remember.
Yeah.
So
it's great.
Brandon Adams. Do you remember the little kid that played
Zeke in Moonwalker?
Yes.
I know.
Brandon Adams' mom was so cool. She came to the set and she bought Sean Lennon, Katie, myself, and of course her son, all of us posters that she found on in West LA and brought them for us. And we presented them to Michael to have him sign. And Michael was mad. He said, how'd you get this? It's not supposed to be out yet. It's not time for it to be released. And Brandon's mom said, well, we got it in West LA. And she told him the store and everything. So he signed it, but he asked Frank, hey, Frank, tell them to hold off on sales on it because there's a date that I want to release these. So that was one of the memorabilia I really regretfully miss having. So fortunately, the photos I sent to you for this interview, my mom had those things. I still have the original Polaroid with me and him sitting here. And so people ask all the time, well, why don't you have more pictures of you and Michael together? The reason being is, one is that we do not have, back then we did not have cell phones. And so we weren't allowed to, and the non-disclosure for that time was so strong. They didn't want you on the phone, on the pay phones, talking to anyone while you're working. It was that strict. When he was working on Smooth Criminal, it wasn't even called Smooth Criminal. It was called Chicago Nights. Are you aware?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was called Chicago Nights. That's how under wraps and top secret that project was. So, how I got that photo that you flashed on there was one of the wardrobe people. What they do for continuity and make sure the shots stay the same would take photographs. So they would do the Polaroid. So I said, Michael, can I take a picture with you? He was like, yeah, sure. So he took it. Michael looked at it, and he looked at me. Then he signed it and gave it to me. So that's how I got that photo. So out of respect to him, no, I didn't unfortunately get to take a lot of photos.
But so Michael's set, everything was super, super confidential there.
Oh gosh, super. Super. Yeah.
That's interesting because for most artists, you wouldn't really think a music video would be there wouldn't be so much,
Well, Red, you got to remember, this
intensity about it.
That project was the follow-up to the biggest selling album of all time.
Of course.
So he was absolutely obsessed with making this a dynamic project. crossing every T, dotting every I. And one thing I learned from him was the element of surprise. So he wanted to broadside the public with this project, and that's why it took so long to complete. That's why it took so he was so we shot things over and over and over again, because if he had any inclination in his brain that it could be done better, he was going to do it. So
Wow.
yeah.
So cool. Now we have some more questions here. How did Michael handle conflict?
So I don't want to say when or where. Like I said, I'm trying being respectful to people's privacy.
Yeah.
Let's just say there was a light guy, and Michael wanted them to hit the light at a certain spot. See, he would say, "Let's try this again." So he said, "Try it again." Okay, we're going to try one more time. And if they didn't, I saw Michael say, "Okay," and walk off the set. And the next day, that person wasn't there anymore. So he was, as far as he knew what he wanted, and he knew that if you were a professional, you were there in his presence, that he wanted the best of the best. And if you couldn't produce, he didn't shame you, he didn't disrespect you, but you were no longer there. That's just how he was.
Wow.
And I like that, and that a lot of things that I did with him and learned from him, I was able to implement in my businesses and practice and how I dealt with people.
Right.
So I'm thankful for that experience. Hope that answers.
So that's a good answer. So with that conflict, he wasn't very direct. He kind of left the place and the person went. So what was he like on set? Was he social? Was he, you know, was he very, confident, or was he more reserved?
No, he was very confident and very social. Now, I will say this: he was shy. So let me give an example. If you remember Smooth Criminal, there's scenes in the video where there was hundreds of stormtroopers that were surrounding us. Remember when Joe Pesci?
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
before Michael came on set, they made a speech. He didn't want everybody staring at him because people would be in awe and not realize that they're staring at him, and it made him uneasy. So they would make announcements like that because it's unnerving. And then the other thing is he had to get in character for certain scenes. Case in point, like the one I'm naming right now, Joe Pesci, or I think in the film called Mr. Big, he had Katie and was jerking her around like he was going to do something to her, and Michael needed to get angry and be in character. So if you got a bunch of people gawking at you, it's a little unnerving. So and I keep remembering stuff. Michael checked me one day. So let me tell you this story.
Yeah.
I was like a puppy. He and I were cool, but there were times where, because he worked so many hours, I'm sure even though he had all this adrenaline going, he still was tired. So one day we're watching what they call dailies. For those of you, you know what that is?
Yeah, but could you explain to the viewers?
Okay, so dailies is what happened yesterday. For example, we shot something yesterday, and they have these usually two big screens. They're sitting side by side. They're probably different now because times have changed. But anyway, there was two big screens, and on each side they're running tape from yesterday. And so what Michael was doing was sitting down and critiquing what it is that they wanted to do. So I wanted to be around him whenever he's out. So I came over and was kind of standing there too. And Michael turns around, looks at me, says, "Can we have the space, please?" And I was so embarrassed. Okay. And I walked off. He wanted to have a moment of privacy with college children and go over what it was and whatever he was going over. But yeah, he for the most part, he was very. That was the only time that ever happened. But
Yeah,
obviously it stuck with me because that was. That was my buddy. So
That's a funny one. We have another question here. Here we go. How has Michael influenced your life, and are you involved in any MJ related activities today?
okay, Michael influenced me um, by making me think two steps ahead, and also public persona. Um, if you want to be if you want to be perceived a certain way, or you want to be treated a certain way, you have to carry yourself a certain way. Um, so with that, I try to be that person that I want to be every single day. Now,
Yeah,
of course, you can't be perfect every day, but do your very best. So I carry that with business, and as far as dealing with people, treat them how you want to be treated. If you
mhm,
don't, if you want people to treat you right, then you need to put that out. And if that person is not treating you right, you need to eliminate that, because don't allow that to change who you are. So I picked that energy up from Michael. And to answer the second part of your question, yes. So after the MJ part of being a Michael Jackson impersonator, I later started a career as a male exotic dancer. I know that's crazy, right? So I did that, but what influenced me with that was making my shows. I wasn't just your bump and grind dancer. I actually put on production shows, and I was arguably one of the best in the business to ever do it. Later, that influenced me to actually owning a gentleman's club, which we actually did shows, and wasn't just a regular smegular adult club. It actually girls actually put up full production shows, and I I influenced and taught my ladies that work for me how to be performers and not just strippers, be performers. And so they put on full production shows. And I'm currently right now, for those, because I know that's a caveat to the next, a lead into the next thing. So right now I'm working on opening a sports bar, which we're doing, bringing in different artists to be special guests, and actresses and singers and stuff. So it just my early on career, but me being a kid and growing to this person as a businessman, Michael Jackson has influenced me to make a lot of money. He's caused me to make millions over the years doing what I do. So I'm forever grateful for that time.
mhm. Absolutely. So thank you everybody for your questions so far. If you have any more, be sure to send a super chat of any amount and we will answer your question here on the live stream. In the meantime, I have a few here. Hold on. So did you ever do work as, like a decoy other than just being a body double stand-in? Did you ever do anything with the fans?
No, actually, okay. The closest to that I would say would have been Super Bowl, but I don't really think I was
Mm,
just equal. I think it was just one of those things that it kind of worked out that way, because
yeah.
coming up scaffolding, we were met. Well, I was met with like what had to be at least 100 security around me running to the car. So people saw me running to the car, and they thought it was him because we had
Mm,
the outfit on. Um, when we did Come Together. I don't know if you remember that, but that was in
yeah.
Moonwalker.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a stint where we were leaving the set, and the fans that were there, they chased me, and they were really trying to get me because they thought it was him, because they couldn't get
Mm,
in, found out where it was, and try to mob me. I've been, aside from working with him, just doing shows, fans during that time were really, really just in love with him, and just because I look like them, they would chase me. So I'd have
mm.
bodyguards for just doing shows. It was crazy. It's a crazy time.
Wow. That's just insane. And I don't think any other artists these days have that same sort of attention in a way. There's no one on the level of Michael Jackson now.
No, no, there isn't. There really isn't. This day, Michael was a phenomenal. First of all, let's just say that, full stop. But aside
Yeah.
from that, it makes it that much harder for another superstar to rise to that ever be to that level.
Yeah.
Because we have the saturation of the internet, and the entertainers are more accessible. Michael was very private, so even sightings of him were very rare. So if you saw Michael Jackson, it was like, wow. You go to the right places, you'll see Drake. You can go to certain places that he frequents that he goes to. You might see Drake, and Drake is. I use Drake as an example because he's probably one of the biggest ones. But Michael was very, very private. Wore disguises. I'll never forget one time in the bathroom at the urinal, and Michael comes in full security guard garb. And I turned around. I'm standing at the stall, and I turn around and I do a double take. I do 10. And I started laughing. I said, Michael. Yeah, I got here. He had to use the bathroom. So he used the bathroom. I walked out. Yeah, he was a character. He really was a character.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's just great, man. Now, you mentioned Drake, but are there any other modern artists that you think are, almost on Michael's level, or you think will be sort of a similar king of pop?
No. Maybe I'm being a little biased. I think as far as numbers are concerned, I think as far as maybe album sales, or maybe, for example, case in point, since we're saying that, Beyonce, for example, I think her tickets are $2,600 for regular seating, and I saw tickets for $9,900 for VIP seating. That's for one ticket, bro. Michael never sold tickets that high. But I don't see a Beyonce being chased and people falling out of their concerts. I mean, they clap along, sing along. God really blessed him with that energy, and I hate to say this. I don't see that it really happening anytime soon. I mean, he's been
Yeah.
gone for a while. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I just don't.
Good answer. Now we have another question,
Sure.
which is, did you ever see Michael in a vulnerable state? Did he ever open up to you, or did he always hold a strong and professional image?
Michael, my interactions with him, Michael always was very stoic. However, I do know that some of the rumors and things did bother him. He didn't like it. He thought it was unfair. So I can't remember what rumor it was, but whatever it was on the cover of a National Enquirer. So this particular day, Miko Brando, which was his right hand guy. I don't know. Have you? Okay. Cool. Miko was always cool to me. I love Miko. So Miko would drive him in, and I remember we were on. I think we were doing. I think that was Speed Demon.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and something was National Enquirer, and somehow the conversation came up. And I said, I hate when they make stuff up about you. He says, I don't like it either, but it's a part of the territory. And I said, so are you okay with all this? And he says, well, I have to be okay with it because this is part of all of it, the fame. I mean, not everyone's going to like you. I said, wow, I complimented him and said, you're really strong because it bothers me. And I'm not even you. He said, yeah, it does bother me sometimes, but it's part of the game. He said, I've been doing this my whole life, Craig, and this is what it is. It does bother me sometimes. Yeah. Gotta keep going. So,
wow. Yeah. Well, it's so cool though how you got the sort of personal one-to-one moments with him, and you seem like you really, did get to know him very well.
So, let me say this. People ask me this question, have asked me this over the years. So how did you get to know Michael Jackson? So there were 3 children on the set. There's Sean Lennon, Brandon Adams, and I can't remember Katie's real. I think her name is Katie, but I can't remember.
Kelly Parker, I think.
Yes. Thank you. I'm so embarrassed. I don't know. Okay. So I wasn't as close to her. I was closer to Sean Lennon and Brandon. So Brandon and Sean, we spent a lot of time together because doing the lighting, they would hang out with me and they do the lighting directly with them. They had stand-ins. They had as they saw small people, we call them small people that would do the lighting for them sometimes. But for the most part, it was the three of us, or sometimes the 4 of us would be all hanging out. So while lighting and talking, we're talking about everything from back then. The cartoon back then was Thundercats. I don't know if you remember that. Are you familiar with the? Okay, well, there were Thundercats, and the boys, most of me and the boys would be talking about Thundercats. We'd be talking about everything from motorcycles, bikes, and cars, and having these good old conversations. So between takes, when we're in break, the kids a lot of time would go hang out with Michael in his trailer. Michael had his trailer. I had my little trailer over here, but Michael had his trailer. So the kids would go hang out with Michael in the trailer, and they'd be having silly string fights, water gun fights. Just having a good old time. So him hanging out with them, they would be talking, and invariably my name would come up. Craig said this, Craig said that, and Craig did this, and me and Craig and Brandon were talking about this and this and that. So Michael kept hearing his name, Craig, 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 Craig. And his thought process, now understanding who he was, he felt as though if the kids trust you, then I can trust you. So that broke the ice with me and Michael. Otherwise, initially, Michael was and not say this, he was nice, but a bit standoffish, meaning it was, hello, how are you? It's a nice day today. Bam, that's it. The conversation ensued after I gained his trust through the children. So that's how I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we were besties. But I will say, in my mind and in my heart, because it was part of my career, he was my friend, and he really felt the energy that I was his friend. So he opened up. We could talk, and that's how that happened.
That's super interesting. Yeah, it does. It does. So, what were like your family and friends' reaction to you all of a sudden you're working with Michael Jackson and you consider him a friend, the most famous man on earth? What did they think about that?
So my mom, my mom, I remember she had moved back. She moved to Chicago. She came back to California. So she phoned me up and she says, I'd like to see you. So she came to the house, we had lunch, and she says, your sister Michelle says you are working for Michael Jackson. Is that true? And I said, yeah, Mom, I really am. And at the time I was working we were doing, we finished, we had finished Smooth Criminal. Well, most of it seemed like Smooth Criminal never was. We kept going back doing pickup shots all the time. But anyway, we were working on the video, The Way You Make Me Feel. So I was telling her how the song went, and she was like, "You really?" And then that week, as a matter of fact, that week is the week that we took the picture together. So I had the blue on, and I showed her the Polaroid. She says, "Oh my God!" So, mind you, as when I was very young, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 were such an influence on. We're in Black History Month right now, so for Black folks during that time the Jackson 5s were our heroes. So, as a little boy. And you're way too young to remember this, but back in the day, they had this alphabet cereal box, and on the back, ABC was the album plastered on the back. So if you bought the serial, you got to have the album at the same time.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So I remember when I was young, going to the grocery store with my mom and begging her, "Mom, please, can we get this, please?" So she got the album, and we kept it, and we played it on our little record player because it was plastic. It played, but it just was crappy. So from the time I was a small boy up until I got older, see, I wanted to be. I thought I wanted to be a doctor for a while. Then I wanted to be an electronic engineer, and then so I come from an entertainment background family. My mom sings, and she still sings. She's 72-year-old. She still sings. So I thought I would nothing to do with entertainment. But then I did the Michael Jackson lookalike contest and won. And I love dancing. I was a breaker and knew how to do all the popping and stuff.
Oh. Uh-huh.
I was really good at it. So
you still got it.
So I messed my life up because I was entertainer. I got the bug bit me, and so that's how that happened. God,
wow.
I'm sorry. I tried to stay on point.
No, that's so cool though. Now we're going to take a quick 2-minute break to thank the sponsor of this video and play a little advert, and then we'll come back with some more questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, hold up. Let me just get this up in here. See you in a minute. So that was an advert from our sponsor, myidol.com. So thank you to My Idol for sponsoring this live stream. So let me bring you back in, Craig. There we go. Okay, so I've got some photos of you and Michael here, and I'll put them on screen. And can you just tell us a bit of, the backstory? Tell us a bit about them. So here we have, let me see. There we go. We've got Michael looking through a camera on Leave Me Alone, I believe, and I think you're laying back in the Lightington.
Yeah, so that's me laying there, and he's looking at the camera. So that scene, I don't know if for your fans should know what that is. That's when Michael was laying there, and he had the roller coaster pieces around his arm, and he wanted to visualize what he would look like being there, and that's kind of what the job of a stand-in or a photo double is. There are some rare times that we do actual photo double work, but for the most part, it's setting up the shot for when it comes out, so to know where he's going to be, where he wants to be, or how he wants to look, so he can visualize it.
That's great. Now I have another one here. Okay, this is a massive one with loads of people, but if we zoom in, we can see you.
Yeah, I'm right behind Bubbles and Bob Dunn, his trainer, and that's Bill Bray, and then of course Michael, and in front of him that's Sean Lennon, and in front of Bill Bray there's Kelly and Brandon Adams. So that was the group shot after that was shot in Culver Studios. It was a massive set. And as you can see, there's all those folks that you see in that photo all had an intricate part on working on that project. And as you can see, a great sum of money was spent, obviously, on salaries as well as what they did and how they did it. And you know, part of me wishes that I could have worked on other projects as for the Dangerous album. However, this was probably one of the most important projects that Michael's career because of
Absolutely.
follow up.
So if we zoom in again, we can see Bubbles there. Do you have any memories of Bubbles? Did you see much of him?
Okay. Here we go back to Speed Demon again. So Bubbles Bubbles was really cool. Prior to working so prior to before working with Michael, or even after for that matter, to be honest with you, I had never encountered or been around a chimpanzee. So being around Bubbles and I would play around. You know, he'd have Bubbles on the set, and I'd play around with him. And Michael would have him in his trailer most of the time. However, this particular day, I'm doing the lighting for Speeding. So there, I don't know if you remember, but there was this huge bunny rabbit thing that did the Michael Jackson content. I mean, the dance off. So I had that on, and they were doing what they call stop motion.
Stop motion. Yeah.
So they would have me move so many pieces like this. So this particular time, I took the thing off, and I'm waiting for them. They're doing something behind the scenes. So Bubbles runs over to me, and he's playing this thing called like tag. So he'll hit me and then run off. And then I go over and I tap him, and I go back to my spot. So by the time he did this for the 5th time, Bubbles came and hit me in the back so hard. Boom! I had a red mark on my back, and Bob was laughing, but he was trying to see if I was okay. And this is Craig. He says, Craig, they're very competitive. He doesn't know his strength. They're incredibly, even as a baby, Bubbles was incredibly strong. So strong that Michael and Bubbles would be in the trailer, and they get to playing around. Bro, the whole trailer is shaking like there's an earthquake in it. He's running up and around, and they're jostling around inside the trailer, and it was just,
oh my God.
Yeah, my God, Bubbles was a piece of work, man. But he was cool. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. I think he's still alive, isn't he? I think he's in like somewhere in Florida in some sort of zoo.
Yeah, he's still alive as far as I know, but he's wild now because they're what happens is their need to breed gets so strong that you can't keep them as pets anymore. Michael later on, before I stopped working with him, he had 2 new ones. Something Bama, and he had 2 of them, and they were really small and cute. But they kind of, I won't say replaced him, but that was his thing. Here's an interesting story. I'm sorry, Red. You keep bringing up memories. I keep thinking of stuff.
No, it's good. I love it.
One day this is when we were filming Smooth Criminal. And I don't know if you remember, but there's a scene where Michael has on a red sweater and they're running around the fields and the kids are running around. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So that was filmed at a place called Will Rogers Park. And we're standing around, I don't know what there was some scene we're about to do or something. So I stood next to Michael, and Bob Dunn is the guy who does the animals. Michael sat there and grilled Bob Dunn for at least 30, 45 minutes, asking him about different animals he could buy. And Bob would say he could get that and give him a long answer as to what he would have to do to house it. He was asking for stuff he could not have. He says, Michael, you can't have that. He says, why? And he'd tell him why. And then he would move on to the next animal. And then Michael would go back to the animals he said he could have. It's not funny, but it's funny because we had to be there. Because Bob was very, very patient with them. But it was hilarious because he just, what about, can I have a king cobra? Michael, you can't have a king cobra. Well, why? They're dangerous. I know, but if you're there, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's a great story. Wow. So I have another photo here of you as Michael. Hold on. There we go. Can you see that? Explain that to me. What's going on there?
Okay, so we had this. There's a transformation from when Michael went from Michael Jackson and Smooth Criminal. I'm trying to recall how that went. So there was he changed into a robot and actually changed into a superpower. So that was the beginning. There's partial masking, and I believe there is a wig that's on, but that is actually me. I shot that. I believe Michael had just began the first leg of the Japan tour. So I was called to this set to do these different pickup shots that could be, I could double for him for. And you can't see it, but behind me, there's an apparatus that looks like it actually was a robot. So the arms went up mechanically, and there's like silver makeup paint that was coming down to make it look more dramatic. That was a hard scene to do because even though it didn't go directly in my eyes, whatever that paint or makeup was, it irritated my eyes. We started filming some of it when MJ was there, and I remember Frank DeLeo, Michael's manager, walked up to me and says, he was funny. It was all in jokes, so I don't want you guys to take it the wrong way. He's, you look terrible today, you know. I know. I felt terrible because it was really burning my eyes. The stuff that makeup was really strong. So that was the transformation into robot. Yeah.
Wow. So were you often in like, actual scenes? If they didn't need it to look exactly like Michael, were you in scenes sometimes?
There are some scenes that I believe that it was me. I can, for example, some of the running scenes. There's one scene I know, that scene, and then there's another one for sure in Speed Demon. I think he's coming out of a closet and dressed up in the rabbit outfit, and I come out and I do like this, and I remember that specifically because I remember that day like the back of my hand. I know that's me.
Yeah.
And there's different shots. I can't really recall all of them, but there's different shots I know were me. But yeah, the audience wouldn't know. I mean, you wouldn't know if I told you, unless I specifically like that scene. You would know because I'm showing it to you. But
yeah, but it's seamless. I mean, you'd have no idea it was you.
If it wasn't, it wouldn't be in there. Trust me.
Absolutely. Now, for the viewers, we still have time for some more questions. So, if you want to send a question, you can send a super chat of any amount. This is an exclusive and really rare opportunity to ask one of MJ's close colleagues, anything you want about his career or about Michael. So, get in the chat. I have some more questions here in the meantime. Tell me a bit about, the Smooth Criminal set. What was the atmosphere like? And was it, really high budget, almost like a film set?
Oh man, Heck yeah. I think I want to say the period. I want to say it was 30s or 50s. I can't really. I think it was 30s, right? I should know this. I should.
I think so.
What period was that? You don't know? Well, whatever period it was, you know, with the spats and these fancy suits, everything in there emulated that time period.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So everything was set up so it was cool. I mean, you almost were afraid to touch anything, you know, because it was just so art antiquish. That's the word I was looking for. Very antiquish.
Right.
So it was very, very period. And the dancers, the interesting thing about for example, the dance sequence of everything in that, because that's kind of when I came in. I came in when they were just finishing up a lot of the dance sequences. A lot of the wardrobe the girls wore, the wardrobe the guys wore, were just incredible. And a lot of people on the set, some of them were. There was a show called Soul Train. Some of those dancers were from Soul Train.
Yeah.
I first met Eddie and Lavelle and
Legends.
yeah, I met a lot of them on the set for that first time. Now Eddie and I talked. Lavelle and I, we didn't really talk that much, but Eddie and I, for some reason, we ended up standing next to each other talking. But the dancers overall, quite frankly, were very cliquish. And
Right.
there's two reasons why that was. Because for one thing, they were so focused on what they had to do. And because the choreography was sick, you know that. All that, was so precise. The whole time when they're all grilling over and over again because the way Michael worked, he wanted you to do it without thought. He wanted you to have it down pat so the emotion of what you were doing was seamless to the dance, not thought about, just flow. So guys like me, little jive turkey dude like me standing on the side, they don't have time to be talking, talking. And everything was so classified, Red. Everything was so freaking classified that even though we knew the same things, we just didn't even talk to each other about it. It was weird. Isn't that weird? The guy from Charlemagne, I can't think of his name. My mind's
Jeffrey Daniel.
Okay, Jeffrey Daniel was on set. So they had just released the bad song. I didn't work on that. That was in New York. That was before my time. So I was watching it and I started talking about it. I said, oh man, that was sick. Da, 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 da. And I went into interview mode, just wanted to pick his brain. So what he thought. I said, so how was it working on that? And he got ready, got all excited, amped up, like I'm talking to you right now, leaning in, and he caught himself. And he said, yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool. It was almost 3D. Because we were so conditioned, you just don't talk about it.
Right. So that's interesting.
I had never worked in any situation other than that, like that, because that's just how it was. All of us were really, really secretive. We knew a lot of the same things, but we just didn't talk about it amongst ourselves.
So you mentioned. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. How was that?
So you mentioned talking to Eddie Garcia. I had the pleasure of talking with him, doing an interview with him a few months ago now, and he did the band tour also.
Yes.
So when you were touring, what sort of shows did you do? How many did you do?
I didn't do that many shows. I did pickup shows stateside. The first one was LA, and yeah, I did mostly LA. I can't remember the other cities, but I didn't do all the shows he did. Eddie was on all of them.
Yeah,
Eddie, he was on all the legs of the tour. He would every now and then he'd come back to do stuff with us on video or whatever. I can't remember what other projects he did. The Way You Make Me Feel with me.
And Speed Demon, I believe.
Yeah, he might have done Speed Demon too. I don't remember, but he was the more he talked. He just liked to talk, so we would talk.
Yeah.
Lavelle was more standoffish, but Lavelle had more on his plate. I think he was doing some choreography too, so he had a lot on his plate. So a lot of the dancers I saw him in passing, we would speak to each other, and I had danced on Soul Train a few times, so I knew some of the dancers from being there. So it was kind of it's cool.
Did Michael ever teach you like any of his moves or mannerisms, or teach you how to be like Michael Jackson, or was it all just self-taught from watching him?
It's self-taught from watching him. So the first time, okay, we were doing Dirty Diana. You know that one, right?
Ooh,
So
good one.
we they brought in an audience from outside, and the band was set up, and the director told me they wanted to do playback, and they wanted me to be him. And Michael stood out in the audience and watched me do him on stage. I wasn't nervous, but I was like, I gotta hit all my moves right. Now, mind you, the album had just came out, so I didn't know all the words of the song. I mean, I just knew the chorus, Dirty Diana. So I kept the microphone really close to my mouth so you couldn't see that I didn't know all the words. But I was dancing my ass off, and when I came off, he says, "You were really good." It was like watching me. I said, "Oh, thank you, Michael."
What a compliment.
What a compliment.
Wow.
And he said I was nasty because remember he did the crotch grab. So I was doing that, and he says, "You can't grab. You're so nasty, Craig." I said, I got it because you do it. He said, "No, but you're nasty." So, fun fact. I bet you didn't know this. So
Okay.
you know when Man in the Mirror, where he does a spin and he drops down to his knees.
Yes.
Well, he started doing that on Dirty Diana, but they filmed it, but for whatever reason they cut it out. Michael hurt his knees because he kept doing that on set. It was a sporadic thing, and he didn't wear knee pads, so he was getting so into it. Because what it would do is, like, for a while, I would do they had me go up there and do it, and then Michael would watch it, and then play back again, have me do it again, and then Michael would go up and do his thing, and then so what he was doing, and I figured it out because I'm like, why am I going? Why is he going? Then I'm going. Why I understand it's what he was doing is he was marking where he wanted the cameras to go. He marked exactly where he wanted to do his keynote moves. So he tried all the things, and then I guess when we looked in the dailies, he didn't like the knee drop, but he decided to use that for Man in the Mirror. So I sat there and watched the evolution of Michael Jackson go for the knee drop for Man in the Mirror. It was born that day, or those days. We filmed for. I think we filmed for one day for that one. And the other time I danced for him was I don't know if you remember that song "Come Together."
Of course.
So I did it then too, and he watched me and he was impressed, and that gave me more confidence doing being an impersonator because if the person you're impersonating tells you that you're good, then it must be so.
Yeah, then once you get Michael Jackson telling you, you're good, that's like the biggest compliment you can get.
Right. I was like, oh, good. I got the seal of approval from the man, the myth, the legend.
So you worked on a bunch of Michael's short films. So how did each of them compare? Like, obviously they had different songs and obviously different directors a lot of the time. How did the kind of atmosphere on each one compare?
Okay, Smooth Criminal, if I'm not mistaken, there was 2 or 3 directors. Colin Silvers is one of them, and I can't remember the other two. The name escapes me. It's been a lot of years, so I don't remember. That production was very, very chill. It was tense, but it was chill. What I mean by that is they set the shots up. Every single person on that set knew what they were trying to achieve. The gentleman that I was speaking of in the very beginning about that came and looked in the camera, his name was John Hora. So John Hora is one of those guys. He had something called the Hora hand. So they literally made these cutouts of his hand, and they would put shadows a certain way, and it would give a different ambient lighting. As crazy as that sounds, I know I'm telling you the story, but this is how precise these people were. Now, I hope that one day you'll get a chance to interview Michael Bush. Michael Bush is a freaking genius in clothing and costuming. I think he's underrated because it's not I don't hear him talk about him. He was really good. So, and I brought him up to say, as far as costuming, he would talk to the other wardrobe people and give them influence on how to achieve things. He knew things. I don't know how he knows these things, but he knew things about wardrobing and the effect that they would have. And that's why the connection with Michael Bush and Michael was so tight, because he could feel what he wanted and not try to impose what he wanted. So, and that's just two small examples of the staffing, of how they were. It was Michael, but Michael had a way of attracting the right people to get the right product. And once he latched onto you, you were his guy or his gal. And that's just how he was.
Okay. That's a great one. Now, let me see what else I've got. And viewers, don't forget that there's still time to send a super chat if you have any last questions. Okay, so Michael was known for having, loads of celebrity friends. You mentioned people like Joe Pesci earlier. Who did you get to meet? What memories do you have of meeting celebrities through Michael?
Okay, I almost ran over running Liz Taylor.
What? What?
Because they called for the break, right? So
Right.
I forgot I was way somewhere else, and someone on walkie-talkie said, "We need Craig on the set." So there I was running top speed, and Liz had just got out of the car. She, for whatever reason, somebody didn't open the door for her. She got out of the car, and I'm running top speed. I looked to the left, and she was right in front of me. I spun just in time and didn't hit her. And I apologized because I was running to the set. And then later on, I met her, and I met. Well, she's a celebrity, right? I met Mrs. Jackson for the first time on Smooth Criminal, and she was so sweet. I met Dinah Ross, Diane Carroll. You're the girl that sings "Your Smile." I forgot her name. Shanice, I think. Shanice. I met.
Okay.
That's all I can remember right now. I met all the brothers, except, and I never met the father. The father never came on set. I met Janet.
Right.
I met Latoya. I worked with
Really?
Latoya.
Janet must have been cool.
So I got a story about that. So
Okay.
me and Mrs. Jackson were standing here, and I was talking to Mrs. Jackson. She walked over to me, we were talking, and I was standing, Michael's trailer is right behind us. So I was talking to Mrs. Jackson, and Janet walks up, and she's standing about this close to me, and she just sits there and she stares at me. And I said, hi. So she thought I was Michael. And she was irritated. She was irritated by that. So husband at the time, her husband at the time, Renee comes over and says she's very tired. I apologize on behalf of her, and walked over to the trailer and went in to go see Michael. But I think she was embarrassed. But my feelings was hurt because see, you're young, but back in the day, we had a crush on Janet. Janet was gonna be my wife, boy. Me and Miss Jackson was gonna be. She was about to be a Mrs. Parks. So my little feeling was hurt, but that was my encounter with Janet. And I understand why she was like, she probably was irritated. She's like, look at this clown dressed up like my brother, you know? So she thought it was him, and she walked. But I got to get closer. I mean, we were that close.
That ties us in nicely to our next question from a viewer, which is, has anyone ever confused you for Michael?
Oh yeah. Yeah. In the height of Thriller, I used to do a lot of events, and like I said, I used to have security because people would, they would get pretty crazy trying to get to me, and it was scary. So yeah, and I would say when we did the, like I said, the Super Bowl show was scary. I had never had that many throngs of people following us at the same time, so it was pretty nice. And driving through, and you get people banging on the car trying to.
I bet.
Yeah. So nervous.
That's just crazy. So, did you ever, if you don't feel comfortable with answering this, that's fine. But did you ever consider changing your appearance in order to look more like Michael?
I'll answer that one. That's easy. Yeah, I did, and I thought about it, and I'm glad I didn't. The kind of person I am, I want to be the best of. Like without argument, I never personally said I'm the best. I would bill myself as being one of the best to get booked, but I knew that I wasn't the best. There's other lookalikes that, that they almost spitting image of them. Some of them, and I'm not going to disclose any names. Some of them had surgery, and some of them just had really good features, and they could do the makeup better than I could, and they just had more features. You got to remember, not to just disparage Michael's name or anything, but he had surgery. I'm not going to say that. Anyway, he had surgery, so there was just to keep up with it, and I did the best I could with what I had. But I did at one point in time consider having surgery, and I'm glad I didn't, because it kept me as an individual. And there was like I said, there was a phase I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And had I had surgery, I would have been trapped in that lane, and which is not a bad lane. You still want to be an individual. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Great answer there. Now, I want to go back to the way you make me feel. When I spoke with Eddie Garcia, he told me that actual gang members were on set. Did you have any interaction with them at all?
Yeah, now it's funny you brought that up, and you brought it up just now. I didn't know they were actual gang members. So there was times where I went over. How I found out is between takes, I went over and was just talking to them, and they were really having a rough conversation amongst themselves. And there was a couple of times it got kind of heated. They were actual gang members. So Michael, there's a picture that's out there. I don't know where it is, but the actual gang members had him hold up his hand. It was a Crip sign.
I've seen that one somewhere.
He didn't know what it was. He just did it. I'm over in the corner rolling. They convinced him to hold up the seat, and Michael didn't know what it was. That's funny.
Good one. Wow. So, about the Leave Me Alone short film, tell me about how some of that was shot, because, it was a really interesting looking video. I'll put it that way. There's lots of stuff going on.
Okay, that was filmed at Culver Studios in a sound room. It was pretty large. So that set wasn't too elaborate. However, a lot of that was done with animation and
Yeah.
CGI. I don't know if that was what they called it then, but so some of it was a lot of it was filmed in there and then done later, edited that way. So like, here's something that's funny. Michael was the jokester, so
Yeah.
I did not know. I'm sitting in that spaceship. As a matter of fact, you brought it up. The spaceship. I'm sitting in the spaceship. They're lighting for me. I'm lighting for it, and I look over my shoulder to my right, and there's 3 men walking in with his huge snake. His name is Crusher. 3 men.
Oh.
Michael's standing over there watching the whole thing and cracking up. I know the look on my face was like, so they walked over to me and put it all around the spaceship, and I'm trying to keep my stuff together, but I'm like ready to crap on myself because I'm so scared. I'd never seen it that big. Michael thought that was so funny. So I got him back. He thought that. So I don't know where it came from. I've never told this story before. I can't believe I'm telling this story.
Exclusive.
This was so in the prop booth. There was plastic dog doo-doo. So I put the dog doo-doo in the ship and walked off. So Michael got ready to get into it and look at it. And he looks up at me and gives me the meanest look. I just knew I was fired. I was laughing. He was so mad.
That must have taken some confidence, though, to do that to Michael. I mean,
well, he got me, so I was like, I got to get him back. He was over there laughing too hard. He thought it was so hilarious. So I got him. But he was a big prankster. He would do crazy stuff like. So we both like pretty girls. Like he always liked really pretty girls. So there was this son. I'm not gonna say her name, but there was a person that was working there, and she was gorgeous. She was I was over there talking to her. And I think he kind of liked her, but Michael didn't go say anything to her. So she was over there talking to me, and we're having a conversation. So we're outside, and I keep getting hit in my face. He's over there with Karen's mirror, making the sun hit the mirror and go into my eyes. And he's over there cracking up. So I finally see him doing it, and he fell out laughing. As soon as he saw me catch him, he started laughing even harder. He was quite the prankster. He was. It's so funny we're talking about this stuff, and I'm remembering little stuff he used to do. He was something else.
Yeah, you definitely seemed like you had, loads of you had a fun time on set. It wasn't just, work hard, really strenuous. It was fun, it seems.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, indeed.
So I'm going to move on to talk about the Super Bowl performance in a moment. But while we're talking about that, if any viewers want to send in a question for you, they can send it via Super Chat. You can see on screen an arrow pointing to the button you need to press, and then you just type a question and we will answer it. So I'll keep that on screen for a moment. So in 1993, Michael performed the Super Bowl, which was, I think it was televised to around 133 million people or something. It's insane. Yeah. And I mean, tell me about that whole process of finding out you'd work on the Super Bowl, leading up, all the way to when you appear in front of, all those people. What was that like?
Okay, so let me set this up. So, first of all, I stopped working for MJ. I don't remember the exact year, but what happened, the last video that we filmed it, and then I got a call to go to do a show in Bermuda. and they had been in talks about LA Gear Michael signed this major deal with LA Gear to make a shoe in his likeness or whatever, and the office had asked me, there was talks about doing a music video or something with MJ, and it wasn't in concrete. It just was kind of still up in the air because the deals were still, the ink hadn't even dried yet. So in the meantime, I got a gig over in Bermuda for 6 months. And again, we don't have cell phones. We've got answer machines. So on my answer machine, I said, if leave a message, I'm currently in Bermuda doing a show. So I think sometime between there and there, that's when Michael calls, you had to be there. You can't no lie. So I think that's when my friend, my friend Derek Morgan got the job, and I'm glad for him because we were actually friends before that. We ran in the same circles. He was doing shows here, and I was doing shows there, and if I'm correct, he had a business partner that did Madonna, and they booked me for gigs because Derek was booked and I needed to do something. Anyway, we ran in the same circles. So I was actually, he got the job, and Michael ended up procuring the job. Derek ended up procuring the job for LA Gear. Now all this ties in together. You're probably wondering why I'm going that way. So fast forward a little later on, Derek and I both started doing, Derek did real estate and brought me in to do real estate. So we started doing real estate deals together. In the midst of us doing it, the Superbowl job came up. So Derek very graciously said, they needed 2 doubles, himself and some mushes. Craig, you want to do it? I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So, I ended up going to the initial meeting with Derek and I and Michael and the producers and whatever, we all met up. Now this part is embarrassing. Now all that stuff I told you earlier. So I meet Michael again. I hadn't seen him in a long time. I said, hey, good to see you. And he was kind of standoffish. And I said, you don't remember me? He said, no. My heart was broke.
Oh.
So he hadn't seen me in a long time. And keep in mind, no makeup on. I went brown. So to get that color, it takes an hour, and I think it's 4 different shades of foundation to get that color.
Wow.
So anyway, I'm digressing. But anyway, so he didn't recognize me. He just, he was very nice to me. So it hit me, but I said, you know what, I'm here. And I let it go. So the next day when I come to the set, I see him. I said, hey, how you doing? Michael, I stuck my hand out to shake his hand. He grabbed my hand and pulled me in and hugged me really, really tight. He says, good to see you. Good to see you. And I felt 10 times better because I think, I know, knowing him, he wasn't being Hollywood. I'm just Craig, and I'm not a superstar. I'm not, and he meets thousands of people, and he hadn't seen me in years, and I wasn't in makeup, I wasn't in costume or anything, so he didn't recognize. But when he knew who I was, he gave me the biggest hug. He was like, "So good to see you." He started asking me how I was doing. I was like, "I've been good. I've been good." He said, "I'm glad you're part of this project." So the 3 of us, we worked together on that, and it was scary. And the reason why it was scary. Okay, so the jumbotrons are way up the top of the stadium, and then some. So the platform that's there, the jumbotron is here. So they had these explosions that they call concussions. And the reason why they call them concussions because they're extremely loud. And they had a carabiner that was attached to my back that on cue, and we had to know the cue. And we only had one time to get it right for that show.
Yeah.
So when the cues happen, you have to be listening and paying attention and focus. And I wanted to be so dynamic. I was like, bam, bam. I hit my move. I think I hit 3 moves. Bam, 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 bam. And I practiced with exactly the timing that I wanted to be, and I wanted to hit it hard. I didn't want it to look I wanted you to be like, damn, Michael did that. And it's only a second, but I wanted to hit 3 moves, and I did real quick, bam, 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 and pose, and then the explosion happened again, and then I dropped to the floor, and that was it. But we rehearsed it with no one there, and at the stadium, and then we did it probably about 20, 30 times to make sure everyone's timing was right with the explosions, and it worked out good.
So tell me what it was like, leading up to that moment where you go up and you appear. But were you nervous? Because are you a height guy? Because I mean, that was pretty tall as well. I
I
would have
was
been terrified.
I told you Michael's put the God touch on me and told me don't be nervous. So we practiced it, so I was good. I just needed to exercise. So that, like I said, that pep talk stuck with me. So when I went up
Stuck
there,
with you until then.
now I was nervous afterwards because going through that crowd and all those people there and them surging and you're hearing Michael, Michael, Michael. That was scary because they were so. And they were like detectives. The fans are like detectives. They know where you're gonna move before you move. I'm like, how does people know where we are? We snuck up here. We went through a back channel and everything. They still found us. That was crazy. So my heart was beating fast when I got in the car.
I can imagine.
I was like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." I could barely talk. I was so
Yeah.
But the actual execution of the Super Bowl, it was a walk in the cake, kick walk. It was easy because first it. Yeah.
So Michael's performance that just changed the Super Bowl. I mean, from what I've heard, before Michael's performance, it wasn't, as big of a deal as it is now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I will say that Michael Jackson set the bar so high. He just was. If you've ever been to a Michael Jackson concert, or if you even watched it on film, the production was so elaborate. It was like the music videos because he thought everything through. So prior to him, before he actually did the Super Bowl, people more or less just kind of just did a regular show. It was kind of a watered down version of a concert, and it was just okay. What Michael did was brought in production. When I say production, everything time. So now I would say that people have moved to trying to emulate that in their own way, and it's impressive. It's for the almost. I don't want to bash any artists. I don't like doing that, but there's some Super Bowl shows I was you missed on that one. But there's been some Super Bowl shows, and I'm like, okay, I see the Michael-esque, and then I call it the Michael-esque touch on those shows.
Right.
In my opinion, you did a really good show. I liked Prince's version when he was doing it, and it started raining during Purple Rain. That was crazy. That was like, God said, I'm going to give you Purple Rain for real, not for fake, but for real. And it was crazy. So, yeah, Michael's performance was, and in all honesty, I didn't know to what extent the rest of the production was because we only focused on our part. So all the flipping over the wheel, heal the world and all the stuff flipping over and all the other things that went along with it, that was bananas. And I didn't even know that was going to all happen.
That's really interesting because Jennifer Batten, Michael's guitarist, said a similar thing. She said everyone was kind of in their bubble or in their section, so they didn't really know what was happening outside of that.
That's how Michael was. And that's Jennifer said it. I think that was well put where she said it. She said because every single and that's how he did the music videos. If you were a dancer, that's what I said we were a clique. So the dancers were a clique. The video part of the filming part, as far as the stand-in, photo double, whatever, I was in my clique. The wardrobe was their clique. Nope. There was times when people would coalesce together, and we didn't know how those things were all going to come together, but they did. and that's just the true mastery of who he was is how he did things and how they actually made everything work. So yeah, that's what Jennifer. She said she was such a sweet person too. I loved her. She was nice working with her.
We have another question here from a viewer, which is, have you ever been to Neverland?
I never got to go to Neverland. I did go to Havenhurst. That's the where mom lives at. I went to Havenhurst. I never had the pleasure of going to Neverland. I do regret that. I wish I could have.
Tell us about Havenhurst then. What was that like?
That was cool. So this is back in the fan days. Okay, so I got to go inside the house, and I went to the candy room, seeing some of the stuff, and Michael wasn't there. This is before I got to meet him. So but Havenhurst was cool, and whenever I wanted to be inspired, I would go by there and just touch the gate. I was a true fan. I wasn't just an employee. Actually, Michael really resonated in my spirit as far as entertainer, and his love of animals. I love animals. I always have. Kids. I've always loved kids. And I've almost my youngest is 17. I have 5 children that I made of my own. So and I'm kind of getting choked up talking about. I wouldn't forget a moment of their child. So beautiful. So so yeah. So we share a lot of the same energies and things like that. So I felt a real connection as a person of who he was, and not to mention his music. If I'm feeling down, I'll put on some Michael Jackson and get hyped up, you know. So
what's your favorite song?
Leave Me Alone. I love that song. Okay, so the story behind that. So I love talking to you youngsters, and the reason I call you youngster, I mean that disrespectfully, because you guys don't remember. There was the Bad album came on a CD, right? So if you bought the actual album, all the songs were on there. Leave Me Alone wasn't on the album. You had to buy the CD because it's a little bit more room on the CD. So the mastery behind that is, if you were the one that bought the album, the vinyl, you didn't get Leave Me Alone. You had to go buy the CD too. So the master behind that was, if you like Michael Jackson, you're going to go buy the CD too, because you're missing a song. Yeah. So being the fan that I was, I bought both. I bought the album and I bought the CD. And I listened to the whole album through when I first got it. And then I had a CD player, and you were making money. You know, you had some, because CD players weren't cheap then. So I bought a CD player and played the CD, and that last song would Leave Me Alone. I was like, oh my God, this is a banger. So I remember calling the radio station, wanting to hear it in the car one day, and I got through. So they says, then this next song is Michael Jackson's Leave Me Alone. No, you're not going to buy it on the album. It's got a little bit more space on the CD. So here it goes. They played it on the radio, and I was all excited. I was like, they played my song. And so when they called me to do the video, I really was happy then. I was like, dang. So Leave Me Alone, I like. And the other one of my other favorites is Remember the Time. And,
great one.
And Earth Song. I love Earth Song. So
good choice.
I love all the songs on the album, but you asked me what my personal, and I listen to the oldies. Not Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. On the Floor. Yeah, I like that one. Off the Wall. And Got Me Working Day and Night.
Yes, great one. I really like that one. Yeah. So you worked alongside the King of Pop, you know, when he was at his zenith. So what is your favorite memory of working with Michael? If you had to choose one, or if you had to choose a couple, you know, what are, you know, the best ones?
Some of the best ones, like, they'll pop in my mind. Like, one thing that just popped in my mind right now. He was a jokester, and I remember him teasing me one time. I was we were doing Speed Demon. So there's running scenes in Speed Demon, and I had these purple shoes, purple patent leather shoes on, and Michael really liked them. And I was embarrassed where I bought them from, so I lied. Okay, so I bought them downtown LA. Okay, there's a spot downtown LA. And so just to set this up, I'm just a kid, right? So I don't have any money. I started making money when I worked with him, but I didn't have any money prior to that. I worked little jive jobs. I think my first real job was at Church's Chicken. So, you know, I was trying to impress him because two things happened that day. Okay, Michael wore Ray-Bans Wayfarer 2s. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I am.
So I bought some Wayfarer 2 fake ones at Venice Beach because they sold them at Venice Beach. So we're filming. Two things happened that day, and twice I got my ass embarrassed. So I set my glasses down. Michael set his glasses down, and we're doing the thing or whatever. So Michael's getting ready to walk off set and go back to the trailer. He picks up my glasses and he does like this. And I said, "No, those are yours." So he picks up the he picks up the real glasses and walks off. So that was embarrassment number one.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, wait a minute. So that same day, actually I got embarrassed 3 times. So the second time, we're doing Speed Demon. So I'm getting ready to run and I slip. And Michael falls out laughing. So I come back. He says, "Don't worry, you'll have time to laugh with me too one day." And so he was cool. So I took some I took a rag and was wiping my shoes off, but they had water all over them. So he says, "Where'd you get those shoes from?" And I didn't answer him because I didn't want to tell him where I got them. I didn't want to tell him where I got them from. So I act like I didn't hear him. So he comes back and asks me again in front of the wardrobe girl. Not like the girl. So he says, "Where'd you get those shoes from?" I said, "Oh, I got them from Florsham's." And she looked at me and she looked at Michael. She said, "Craig, Florsham's does not sell."
You were close out.
Okay, you got me. I got him downtown LA. She said, "Okay, all right, I believe that." And Michael was looking at me like, I was like, "Why did you just tell that lie?" Because I was embarrassed.
Yeah,
I was embarrassed because downtown. So you're in London, right?
I'm in the UK. I'm in Wales, which is like next to England, so near London. Yeah.
So we have now downtown LA. It's not really that way. I'm in Dallas, Texas right now. So downtown LA back then was the place where you find all the unique, cool stuff, but it's real cheap. And in my finite mind, I'm thinking I'm trying to impress Mr. Jackson because he's the king of pop, and I wanted to look like I was a cool kid. Not realizing I didn't even know him as well as I began to know him, that he shopped in thrift stores. And that's another story. I saw Michael Jackson had on this jacket. You've probably seen it. It's a red jacket, and on the side right here, it's like a marching band jacket. It says Monroe. You ever seen that? You remember that? The braid.
I think I know. Yeah, yeah.
So he bought that jacket after working with him. I found that out. I found out that he shops in thrift stores, and I found out which ones he shops at. So the thrift store he bought it was someplace called Eric's. It's on a street called Melrose in Hollywood. So I went to Eric's to see if I could find some cool stuff like that. I found the exact jacket. So I came on set with it on. Michael comes out. He sees it. He sees me with it on. He said, "Is that my jacket?" I said, "No, Michael. I bought it the same place you bought it." So he didn't believe me. He thought I stole his jacket. So he asked Michael Bush, "Is that my jacket?" And I heard them talk, but I act like I wasn't listening. Bush said, "No, Michael, yours is cut off right here. That's Craig's jacket." He said, "Are you sure?" He didn't believe me. He didn't believe Michael Bush. So Bush goes to the trailer, grabs the whole rack of clothes, and drags it out to the set. And sure enough, the Monroe jacket's sitting right there. Michael puts it on. He looks at me. He says, "How'd you find this jacket?" I said, "I told you, you shop at Eric's." He says, "Where's Eric's at?" I says, it's on Melrose." "Oh, you found my thrift store?" I said, "I found your thrift store." So that's another story that I have. So.
Yeah. You just have so many good stories. I mean, you
Yeah.
seem like you just had such a great time. It must have been just an incredible part of your life.
It was incredible, and I am so thankful to God to have
Yeah.
experienced. And it was so sad when Michael passed away. So I went through a horrible divorce, and my ex-wife got to keep the kids, and I moved to Las Vegas, and it was my first summer, my time to have the kids when Michael passed away, and I wanted to go to the funeral. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of the festivities because Michael was such a big part of my life. And I had to hide my emotions with the children because it was my first summer with them, and I wanted this summer to be epic. I didn't want any dreariness or sadness to interfere. So I would sneak every now and then and watch the news things. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was in denial. And I was proud of myself. I was able to get through the summer without breaking down in front of the kids. But my friends that worked with him, one of my close friends, um, who went different places, she worked with Janet, and she knows a lot of the people that I know. Her name is Diane Gordon. She's a singer, and she reached out to me and was like, "Craig, if it's a financial thing," she wasn't sure what it was. She was willing to pay for the ticket. I said, "I can't. I have my kids here. This is my first summer, and I'm trying to keep a stiff upper lip and be strong for them." But when they left, I couldn't talk about Michael. I'm trying not to be emotional, but I could not talk about Michael for at least a year because it just influenced my life so much in so many positive ways. And I thank him for the work ethic that he indirectly taught me from just being around him.
Yeah. Right.
So much so, right now, like when I work, I can work long hours, especially if it's my business, and it doesn't bother me because what would Michael do? Michael worked hard to get where he was. So it's ingrained in my spirit and my thing. And I only pray that there doesn't now another Michael Jackson. I pray that every person that draws in air that's a good person gets that kind of worth ethic and can get the things that they really want and deserve. So if I was to say anything about him, he was not only a great artist, but a great mentor because he and I know I'm not the only one that feels this way about him. That he taught work ethic. Nothing comes to you for free.
Yeah.
He worked his ass off, and that's what he taught. I'm sorry to ramble.
Great answer.
I'm trying to
No,
articulate.
it's great. We've had a comment here which says, "What a genuine person." And I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, you're so humble. I mean, you worked with Michael Jackson for years at his zenith, and you're so, grateful to him. So,
Thank you. I mean, we're at the end of the day, and what I've learned from being around him is we're all the same air that you're breathing over there in Wales. It's the same area that I'm breathing here in Dallas, Texas, and we all put our pants
mhm,
in one leg at a time. The blessing of it all is we all have different talents, and the difference between Michael Jackson and you, and let's say wherever, his talent was entertaining. His talent was the ability to sing, and his talent was to be able to bring out that energy that touched the masses in such a magical way. But he was human. He had feelings. He was a loving, caring person, and so I'm grateful for that experience. I couldn't have written a better story. It's just, I'm grateful. All those people, right? All the people we worked around, they were geniuses in their own way. And I gotta say, like I said, Michael Bush, I love him. Karen Faye, she was so sweet to me. You know, oh God, I'm sorry. I keep thinking of stuff that happened. One of my first weeks of working on the set. Okay, so I had a girlfriend drop me off. No, actually, no, my bad. I drove my car, but you couldn't park on the set. So I'm fully made up, ready to go to work. And during that time, it was dangerous because people knew he was working on something, just didn't know what. So I ran from across the street. I'm running top speed, trying to keep from being noticed or, maybe accosted. I don't know. It was in Hollywood. It's kind of, Karen Faye swoops up in the Mercedes Benz that Michael Jackson bought her. This is gift from Michael Jackson, Joseph Jackson. She comes over. She says, "Get in, Craig." So I jumped in the car with her, and she drove me to the set. On the set, she had a parking spot, and she barely knew me.
Yeah.
She barely knew me, but she took me in her car and was really nice to me. And we used to talk between takes and stuff. Michael called her Turkle. I don't know why he called her that. And he had this thing where he would pat her on her back or her leg, make this noise on her. And so it was a camaraderie between everyone we worked with, and everyone was super cool, and they made money, they were rich, but they were down to earth, and it was a wonderful time, man. I don't know.
Absolutely. So which video was your favorite to work on? Because you did a bunch of them.
Favorite. I know it's probably not, that well talked about, but I really enjoyed working on Come Together because it was a Beatles song, and I really liked Michael's vocals in it. I had never heard him sing a song that wasn't his, knowingly it wasn't his, and he executed it. And fun fact, he forgot the words, and we had to do it over again. He forgot what, and I saw him forget the words, and he said, "We got to redo it again." And he looked up the words. Someone brought him the words to the song, and he sung it. So it was fun to work on that, just because the raw energy. And we were supposed to do Man in the Mirror in that same week. For some reason, it got scrapped from the call sheet, and he ended up doing it live, which I'm glad he did, because I love that dun, 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 when he did it. That was dope. And
absolutely.
I did the drop on the knees. I was like, "Oh, Dirty Diana."
For sure.
Yeah.
So after working with Michael Jackson, what happened next? I mean, like, what were your projects at the time, and how's that led you up to where you are now? What are your future ambitions? Just tell me a bit about life after your work with Michael.
Well, I started dancing and doing the strip club thing because I frankly, I just got burnt out from doing the impersonation shows. They weren't as prevalent, and then also I didn't like the energy behind the allegations that happened. So I had no drive to do that anymore. I didn't want to answer questions, and I didn't want to be looked at that light, and I wanted to keep the same energy that was with Michael. So I never even talked to people about Michael Jackson anymore. I kept it to myself. I knew in my heart that he hadn't done anything wrong. But, when you're that high on the totem pole, you're a target. And secretly, I can speak of this now. I knew that that probably would be his downfall, only because he had a strong connection to children, and not in the way people wanted, not in the way people twisted it to be. So I just didn't even want to be a part of it, and so I took a different lane. And I told you I became a male exotic dancer. I got to still get my Jones off from performing, and um, built a, I guess the energy. I built a fan phrase, frenzy type following doing the dancing, and I treated it like a business and made a lot of money and broke a lot of barriers as far as uh, promotions. I took the same energy about the way Michael promoted himself. I promoted myself. I did the production with the videos to make it bigger than life. I I was one of the first male entertainers, to do color flyers. No one had ever done color flyers before I started doing color flyers. I was the first male entertainer in LA to ever have a billboard. I had billboards around LA. Um, then the entrepreneur part of me, I had my first hair salon, and then later on, fast forward to down the line, I owned my own strip club. I got my own in Vegas, and it was the hottest. I was dubbed. It's funny. I'm gonna say this. I've never said it. This is a Ray Jackson exclusive. I was the
Ooh.
king of Vegas for uh, West Coast urban hip hop strip clubs in Vegas, and did that for 11 and a half years. Um, and then moved here to Dallas, opened up another club, closed that club because me and my partner, we went our separate ways. And grand opening January, March, COVID hit, and I lost that investment because of COVID, a lot like a lot of other Americans did. And now currently, 2023, we're getting ready to open up a sports bar here in Dallas, Texas. So, will I ever perform again? No, but I've been an MC, a host. I've done award shows. People have had me host their shows and do things, and I've done many TV interviews, radio interviews for the lane that I was in that entertainment part of things. So that's what I do now, and I'm just Craig Parks. That's all I am. Just Craig Parks, the club owner. nothing, nothing too special.
That's great. Now, for the viewers watching, this is the final chance to be able to send in a question for Craig. This is like the final chance. If you don't send anything in the next few minutes, we will be wrapping up very, very soon. So you can see on screen how to send a question, if you please. And then, yeah. So let me get you back up here. There we go. Okay, so finally, given the chance, what advice would you tell your younger self?
Uh, if I was talking to my younger self, I would say, Craig, Michael's a photographer. I would I would have paid him to get those photos that he has, me and Michael, because Michael's guy, Sam Emerson, his photographer, got a lot of great shots of me and Michael. Um, I would do that, and if I had to do it over again, I would have joined SAG because I had an opportunity to do that. Because I love to act, and I would. My secret dream was to become an actor myself, and I didn't pursue that. Now I won't say I'm too old for it. I just don't. I'm not. I haven't placed myself in a position to do that. So if I were to do things over, I would have been. I would have been more focused on becoming more successful as an actor off of the success of working with MJ.
Hmm.
But when you're young, you tend to it's human beings do it. You get tunnel vision, and you start focusing on only what's in front of you. And the other thing is, in my little mind, I'm working with Michael Jackson. There's nothing higher. In my mind, that's where I was at, to my
Right.
fault. So, um, like that commercial says, stay thirsty, my friend. I would stay thirsty. I was already quenched, and I was just drinking all the juice that I could at that moment. And if I had to do it over again, I would have, capitalized on those moments just a little bit more. Because like now, if something happens where the conversation about Michael Jackson comes up and somehow, or someone knows that I work for him and we'll start talking about it, someone has to bring it up for me to talk about it because I just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Right. That's interesting. That's interesting because I mean, a lot of people, if they worked with Michael Jackson, they'd go around, telling everybody, shouting it into a megaphone. But like, you're really, I mean, you're just so humble and you're so chill about it. It's great.
It's a blessing, man. I just, I'm very, very happy whenever I see something that talks about that era or Michael Jackson. Everything's compared to with Michael. I think someone put a post up on who had the most number one singles or something, and Michael's in that list, and everything's compared to him. Who sold the most albums? Who did this biggest show ever? Biggest audience. I think that performance at the Super Bowl is still in the World Book of Guinness record, the biggest audience ever performed in front of him. So
Wow.
I laugh and I think about it. I said, wow, I was a part of that Guinness Book of World Records. So yeah.
Wow. So Craig, it has been such a pleasure talking with you today. We've had so many great stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If any of the viewers would, find you online, see what you're up to, follow your social media, where can they find you?
I'm Mr. Craig Parks on Instagram, and I believe Mr. Craig Parks on Facebook. Yeah, those are the two ways you can reach me. Those are my Instagram and my Facebook, Mr. Craig Parks.
Excellent. So thanks once again, great Craig, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Okay, there you have it. That was an interview with Craig Parks. Thank you so, so much to everybody who sent in questions and super chats. And thanks to everybody for watching and tuning in and commenting and for all your support. We've got a bunch of great comments here, so thank you, everybody. And I'd also like to thank myidol.com for sponsoring this video. I've got it here. There we go. And as you guys know, this is my first live stream, so this is pretty exciting, and it turned out brilliantly. So hopefully we'll be able to do some more of these in the future with some other great guests. I'd also like to thank everyone who's supported me on Coffee recently. I've decided to end my Coffee subscription for the moment, so I'd like to thank everybody who's supported me on there, thus far. Okay, there we go. Now, before we go, I'd like to make a little announcement, I guess. Obviously, I've got this Michael Jackson channel, but in the meantime, I've been working on making a new YouTube channel. It won't be associated with MJ, but I think some of you may still be interested. Let me find it here. Okay, so I've been working on this new channel called Red's Reviews and Interviews. It's to do with filmmaking, the entire film industry. So it's a YouTube channel I've been working on for a while with a corresponding blog. So on the channel, I've already recorded some interviews for it, but nothing's uploaded yet. I'll be uploading very soon. You need to, stay tuned to my social media. I've got Instagram and obviously here on YouTube where you'll see announcements for it. I've interviewed an actor from Stranger Things, some Marvel projects, a film critic, some pretty cool things. So stay tuned for that. So if you're interested, keep a close eye on my Instagram stories. You can follow me at redjackson_MJ. Thank you, Eddie Gomer, for watching. Great to have you here. So that brings us to an end. So thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend. Thank you, Crystal. Bye-bye.